Math gets a bum rap. That's surprising considering that math and its twin sibling logic are literally the foundation for all other forms of justification. Math is one of the primary tools of science and is at the core of all technological advancement. Math is the sieve through which critical thinking filters anecdotes from data and the glue that builds evidence out of observations. Sadly, math is rarely, if ever, used when discussing the existence of gods. And when it is used, usually two things happen. The person making the claim can't explain how the math was developed or why it is relevant to the argument. And two, the person arguing against the claim never presses for that explanation. It's as if math were some sort of magical boogeyman that's invoked and then abandoned, with both parties glad to be rid of it. Have you ever thought phi, the golden ratio, was just too spooky to be a natural phenomenon? Have you ever thought that the circumstances of the universe were just too improbable to have happened without a design? Have you ever thought that the number patterns found in sacred texts must be messages from the divine? Or, like popular apologist William Lane Craig, have you ever thought that it was just too much of a coincidence that math describes the universe so perfectly? If I was just describing you, well, today's your lucky day, because we have a couple of nerds hosting the show, and it's all starting right now.
Welcome, everybody. Today is September 22nd, 2024. I'm your host, Dr. Ben, and joining me today, of course, is Scott Dickie. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Ben. Doing great. Looking forward to a good show today. I'm ready for thick math content to come our way.
Yes. So if you believe in any mathematical proof of God or any form of numerology, we want your calls today. Of course, any calls related to religion, theism, or any supernatural claims we're happy to take as well, because Talk Heathen is a product of the atheist community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. Talk Heathen is a call-in show, so get your calls in because we have some open lines. The number is 512-991-9242, or you can go to your computer browser, type in tiny.cc/callch and get on the show. You're going to want to call in sooner rather than later because the lines can fill up, and we often prioritize the earlier callers. So get those calls in right now. But in the meantime, we're going to move on to our Talk Heathen to Me segment. Last week, we asked you, what's the reason God created hell? Wrong answers only. And here are the top three answers. Coming in at number 3, we have from Michael Johnson, composer, God created hell as a place for country music fans. Scott, are you a fan of country music by chance?
I wouldn't say I'm a fan. There's some songs that I can put up with, but generally, no. Generally, I'm not. How about you?
I'm not. So I guess neither one of us are going to hell this time.
I'm one of those many people that says I'll listen to everything except for country music.
For sure. If any of you in the chat are country music fans, sorry. But there's, I guess, nobody that can save you from God's created place for country music fans. And
that would be good for them. That would be good. They'd want to go there, right?
I mean, fair. Yeah. But in number 2, we have from Dorfmeister. Why did God create hell? He realized how silly it sounded when he said, darn you to heck.
True enough. That would sound a bit silly.
And in number 1 from Colin Matz, we have God created hell because the Catholics insisted on it. That's a really good one.
Well, they need leverage, right? They need leverage. They need like real things that they can threaten people with.
Absolutely. And the next question for next week is a really good one. I can think of so many good answers, but I don't want to steal everybody's fun. We want to hear your answers. So in the comment section, not the live chat, the comment section underneath the video after this goes live, type in your answers and we'll read the top 3 on the show next week. But the prompt for this week is title a porn movie starring Jesus. We want to hear your best answers, but I know Scott Dickie has come up with some pretty good ones, and we have the winner
Yep.
of his
It was.
choices today.
I'm a big fan of puns, and so I go nuts on these kind of things. And so I had a list of possibilities, and I ran them through the gauntlet of my family to see which one was the favorite, and I ended up choosing that one that nobody in my family likes. So I'm going to apologize in advance. My answer, the porn movie starring Jesus, is The Ejaculate Ejection.
Wow.
That's my final answer, and I'm sticking with it.
Wow, that is definitely a winner. So
how about you, Ben?
Yeah, for me, there are too many. I'm sure somebody in the chat or in the comments is going to say Jesus is coming. That's probably the one I was thinking of. But that's a pretty easy one. I'm sure the audience has some more creative ones that I'm excited to hear about next week.
I'm looking forward to seeing them. Yeah.
And I'm sure there's some other people backstage here that have some other opinions, but we'd love to see their faces. The wonderful crew cam. Let's go to the crew cam. And there they are. Some beautiful faces helping us out every week, making us look as good as they possibly can. We don't give them much to work with as far as that. So we really appreciate them stepping in and doing all of that work to make us look decent on this show.
And they do a good job too. They do a good job at it.
Yeah, for sure. We've got some calls coming in right now. I think we can go ahead and take this first one. Ryan, you are on. Oh, I guess you went back to the screen. We'll take them in a second. In the meantime, we got some funny things that end up in the Instagram DMs. Some comments that people write about Scott and me whenever we're not there to specifically call them out. So let's look at number 8. Looks funny. This one's for Scott.
Uh-oh. All right, what does it say here?
This person said, I'm still waiting for atheists to prove abiogenesis. It's insane to say that the non-living KJ reeks can come to life with no life nor intelligence causing life. So back at you. Ask yourself, ask yourself about abiogenesis. Okay. So do you have some context for this one that people like to know about?
It says that Scott was talking about Detective Wallace's book. So for one of the shows, I did a cold open that referenced J. Warner Wallace, and he talks about, the reason I brought him up was I was talking about circumstantial evidence, but this question is talking about abiogenesis. As far as I'm not somebody who asserts that abiogenesis happened. I don't happen to know how life began, although I have seen some fairly effective results on how some possible mechanisms for abiogenesis might be in effect or might have happened. I'm not sure. I don't know if there's a typo in what was written there. I'm not sure what to say. The non-living KG reeks can come to life. I'm not sure what. I'm not sure exactly what that means. But to me, abiogenesis is not something that's been definitively proven, and might not be provable because it's mostly happened in the past. But I think we do have good evidence that the steps that would be required in such an event, we know that they can happen naturally. And so it stands to reason, I think, that it's at least a reasonable conclusion to come to about abiogenesis. Do you have any thoughts on that from your medical perspective?
No, I think you've summarized a lot of good stuff there. I think maybe we'll read one of mine quickly, just because they're funny. Some people were angry at me. There are a few along the same lines, but somebody said, "What a jerk! I'm praying for Dr. Ben because I told them that they shouldn't put mud in their eyes, and apparently that was too far.
How dare you?
For me to go? Yeah,
they should not put mud in their eyes. Okay, well,
yeah." And with that, I think we have a caller ready for us. So we're going to bring on Ryan. He-They from Michigan. It sounds like you want to discuss OCD and religion. Can you summarize a little bit of your story or your position?
Well, I'm not really super religious. I mean, I'm open to the idea of like there being like some type of higher power, but I don't know. There's not something I would know it. And it's just that like I do have OCD, and like my OCD is a lot of things make it difficult for my life. And let's just say religious and OCD, they don't really go together that great. They go together like rice and mustard.
Have you tried it?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, but what
Can you
specific
expand on that?
ways? Yeah, what specific ways did religion kind of affect you in your life?
Well, I have hobbies, and I was told by like people that my hobbies will send me to hell. And because of OCD, my brain takes a lot of things very literally, and it's just like makes me not sleep at night sometimes. I'm better now, but like back then it was terrible.
Yeah, it sounds like that's been really difficult. Have you kind of like with your experience having to go through that, and then now that you're doing a little bit better, what strategies did you have to kind of help with some of those thoughts and deal with some of the, I guess, shame tactics that people were putting on you from religion?
Well, I just remembered that like there were gods before the Christian God, and that if the Christian God was correct, it would be like, I don't know, a 1 in a billion chance, especially for counting all the other gods that are in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Was that something that motivated you prior to this experience? You said that people were telling you that your hobbies were going to send you to hell. Did you believe that beforehand, or how did that affect your belief in a God, that experience?
Well, before then, I didn't really care on the matter that much, to be honest. But like after it happened, I was like, no, it's ridiculous. But my brain was like, yes, Ryan, listen to all their words. Take them as literal.
So are you saying that about the hell threat? I mean, because like as an atheist, if somebody tells me I'm going to hell, it's just like, oh, I don't. That's not something that I worry about. And it sounds like something that affected you when people told you that you also said, you were just saying about how there was something inside of you. I don't know if you were referring necessarily to a literal voice, but I kind of get what you mean there. You're kind of,
It wasn't.
your habits of thinking were kind of pushing you in that direction already. So maybe it was something that you were raised on. Maybe you were brought up believing in hell. A lot of people say that particular fear of hell is difficult to shake. Do you think that you were on your way out of religion and were just having difficulty shaking the hell belief, or were you a believer at the time, or what was the net effect of the things that the people told you?
Well, let me tell you, the last time I went to church when I was 3 years old, and I'm sorry, my brain just emptied.
No problem.
Oh, that's fine. I was just curious as to your progression and your story and your development over time. And how are you different today than you were before that? What you said, you stopped going to church at age 3. Was it because were people telling you at age 3 that you were going to go to hell and that your hobbies were going to be what takes you there, or is that something that happened since you stopped going to church?
my family just fell out of interest with it. We went.
So who were the people that were telling you these things?
Oh, people online.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know that there's a lot of shame tactics that are done in religion, and I know for anybody with even a shred of neurodivergence, it can be very difficult to, number one, have a lot of the connections that some people rely on in those church settings. I know for me, I had noticed that churches, at least like in the youth sections of churches, had like very similar personalities among all of the people that fit in there. And if you deviated in some way, you weren't really accepted, but you were still expected to show up. And that's something that kind of led me out of religion. Like in the very beginning, it was kind of the first thing that I noticed was I don't feel the sense of belonging here that a lot of other people do. And there's this kind of double-edged sword with some of those communities where it's like you feel like that's the only place you can go because I don't know if your parents had made you show up or if that's just the only place you are around people consistently other than school. Like you feel like that's the place you need to go. And you're told, hey, if you don't go here, then you're wrong or you're sinful or whatever. But then kind of being in those environments can be very problematic for people that don't fit in well. There is this social hierarchy within church settings and even in youth services. I noticed a lot of that. There are people who fit very specific personalities of like youth pastor personalities that were kind of set up for success in those places. Like they had networking, they had like the positions in the church band and stuff. Like they were able to lead small groups. And a lot of that too was people who were men, like, or assigned male were able to do more of those things. But if you didn't fit in, you were kind of like silently ostracized, which it's very interesting thinking about church culture in that way. But I think kind of like it sounds like you have a little bit different of experience, but either way, you were in a position where this thing wasn't working for you. This wasn't the place that was helpful for you in your situation and even may have caused some other problems, but people kept coming in and saying, you have to do this or you're going to hell, or you have to do the right things. Am I kind of touching on something that kind of fits your experience?
Not really. All of this really just happened online, to be honest. When I went to church last year, I barely remember church, by the way. It's just that I went online, like some websites, and I was like, oh, I gotta really believe in God. And all of a sudden, I was bombastic with people that are like, fuck you, or like, screw you.
Yeah, I would recommend like setting up some boundaries if there are people, especially on the internet, because it's a very toxic place out there. If people are being hostile, it's totally okay to not interact with those people. And one of the healthiest things for me has been kind of taking a step back from those discussions on the internet, even as much as I love debating on the internet, sometimes it's too hostile, it's not effective. And so sometimes I just put up boundaries and I walk away. And I hope that you don't feel forced to be in those situations. But I think we're gonna end up moving on to the next caller. Unless, is there anything else you wanted us to hear about today?
I just want to say everyone in my life is wonderful. They do not give a crap that I don't believe in God at all.
That's awesome. I'm glad you have some people that are positive around you. And with that, we're gonna let you go, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Sunday. But thank you so much for calling in. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan.
All right. Starting off with kind of a more wholesome call. Yeah. We have some lines available if people are interested in calling in. I do want to talk about a couple things that are really exciting within the community here. As I mentioned, in religious circles, it can be hard to find a place to call home, a place to call your friends and your family. But hopefully we can offer that to you all here. And I hope you all feel safe in our side chat, feel safe at our events, and that we can provide that environment for you all. And with that, one of our main primary in-person location is the ACA library. And we have a fundraiser going on that we're in phase 2 of, the Brick fundraiser. We want to highlight some of the really standout orders that we've received for that. And so this week's featured brick goes out to Javier in New York. And the quote from Javier says, "Thank you for your purchase." Or sorry, Javier says, "AXP has defined the way I think and reason," and gave a little smiley face. So thank you so much, Javier. We really appreciate you. And you all can get your own bricks at tiny.cc/ACA bricks. And maybe you'll be featured on the show as well.
Yeah, they have a nice little array in the back of the library there. I was when I was at the Bat Cruise this past summer, I got a chance to see it, and it's really nicely set up. And so they're going to expand on that, I guess, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, I need to get something on a brick, because we all know that we won't live forever, but we'll see how long a brick does. It will probably outlast most of us here. So get your bricks, be immortalized at the ACA library. Other ways that you can support the ACA and all of the channels we have is you can like the videos, like this video, like the videos of every time you're in a chat, just like the video. If you're over at AXP, like the video. If you're over at Nonprofits, like the videos. If you're over at Truth Wanted, like the video. Just like the videos. You can also share out the links to your friends, your family, everyone in your community. Share them out with your theist friends for them to call in. You can also get some merch. We have merch at tiny.cc/merchaca. And there's new pins, backpacks, onesies, and even youth tees. Lots of different things. And sometimes we have a limited edition item that you can get. I have one of them from a while ago. I'm not going to turn around and show you the back, but you can get some cool ones with the Talk Heathen logo and with some fun designs on the back. I've got the
look at that, even on the sleeve and everything. No cheap stuff here, only top-notch quality.
Yeah, good quality stuff. So make sure you get some merch. That'll definitely help us out. You can also send a super chat with questions or comments, and we will read those live on the air as long as they are appropriate to be read out. So definitely, if you have a question or a comment that you don't want to call in about, but want to give a super chat, that is another way that you can do that. Additionally, like I said, this is your community. We want you to know what's going on in it. So you can go to www.atheist-community.org and you can learn about our organization, our policies, and how you can get involved in any events that are coming up. So with all of that, let's go into this next call. And I'm very excited about this. So we have Jackie, pronouns are he, him, from Mississippi, wanting to talk about a case for religion. And I'm going to let you just take it away. Give us a summary of your argument.
Okay. So basically, I'm going to be using the philosopher Paul Ricoeur's narrative identity theory to argue that religion is accurate and inescapable. So are either of you guys familiar with the French phenomenologist Paul Ricoeur?
I'm not. Can you give us a little introduction?
So Paul Ricoeur was a Christian existentialist and phenomenologist from France. And basically what he argued is that human being identity is narrative identity. He expands on the hermeneutic phenomenology of Marx and Heidegger, and basically believes that the way human beings construct their identity of their ipse or their self, as opposed involves storytelling, and storytelling, that's stories, and that's what religion and are stories.
Hold on, though, Jackie. Does religion? Well, do stories have to be religious?
Do stories have to be religious?
Yeah, if because it sounds like. Because it sounds like and you've said a lot of words, so we're going to try to distill it down to two. It's like kind of the main thesis here. So if I'm gathering this philosopher had said that like humans rely on storytelling, and we kind of base our identity in this concept of storytelling, which is kind of where religion falls in. But to then bridge the gap to say that religion like is unavoidable because of this, I want to ask, does storytelling require, like, are we saying that all storytelling is inherently religious in nature?
It depends. So I would say meta-narratives are religious, but not regular narratives. So if you are familiar with Carl Jung's analysis of religion, one thing Jung talks about is that religious stories exist in archetypes, and we have a value hierarchy of archetypes, with some representing the most sacred and some being more profane. And I would argue that the most holy are the ones, the symbols that reflect with most reflect.
Why are these archetypes holy? You're saying a lot of things. You're spitting out a lot of things and a lot of names. I don't really care about the names. I don't really care about like the cool philosophical sounding things. I care about what's true and what isn't. So let's keep this pretty simple. If you could summarize your argument in one sentence, how would you do it?
With each active perception, there's an implicit value hierarchy, and whatever sits at the top of the value hierarchy is, as a matter of definition, in the divine realm. So, like Jordan Peterson talks about,
I don't accept that. I don't accept that. Hold on, because you are saying that there's a value hierarchy. I would agree that there's a value hierarchy. I do not accept the jump, though, to there's a value hierarchy to whatever is at the top of that is inherently divine. I do not accept that. I don't see where that needs to come into play. How did you make that leap to saying it's divine?
Because the symbols that our self relates to isn't a dialogical relationship, a hermeneutic.
Why does that matter? Why does the fact that we relate to a symbol make it holy?
Because holiness, by definition, is that which is most important, right? The God of the Abrahamic religions.
Okay, well, hold on. Okay, what you're doing here, and I'll let Scott get in here in a second, but you were just, if you were defining holiness as like whatever's most important, sure, you've included a whole lot of things, and therefore you've made the term less significant. So like, yeah, I could, if you had merely defined holiness as whatever is most important, okay, fine. Like I could grant you that definition, but then that takes away the significance of it being anything supernatural. Because if we have any society that has like different importance depending on the hierarchies that they have, you'd have very, very different things taking that top position. And you could have a secular society that has something in its highest importance, such as the reduction of suffering. That's of highest importance, I would say, in a lot of secular humanism. I do not, like, under your definition, that would still be defined as holy. But I think you're defining holiness to be so broad that it could encompass really anything, depending on subjectively how we look at it. So I'll let you respond quickly, and then I'll let Scott get in here.
Well, there's two components there. First of all, the reduction of suffering is sort of a hard standard. So like one thing Jordan Peterson talks about is a lot of what's classified as suffering in a materialistic and physiological sense doesn't really make sense, because a lot of people's main issues in life is not that they're physically or emotionally suffering, like in some sort of biological determined sense, but that they don't have meaning or order in their lives. And so that's
I disagree. I wholeheartedly disagree. I disagree with that statement, because a lot of that meaning and stuff, like that stuff is great, but that all kind of breaks down when somebody doesn't have enough nutrition. Like if somebody doesn't have food or a sense of safety, like the basic needs at the bottom of the pyramid, like it's very hard to even think about those concepts of meaning in other ways. Like especially if you are so malnourished that you don't have any energy to get yourself off the fucking ground because your muscles are so atrophied. Like, I don't think there's much that you're thinking about in terms of like meaning and hierarchy of like holiness or whatever we're getting at with that. I don't accept that argument. Scott, do you want to jump in here?
Yeah, sure. I just want to rewind a little bit here. Are you saying that that religion is something that people should embrace because it is part of their identity or part of their storytelling aspect of their personal nature? Or are you saying the result, what's going to be the last sentence of your proof here? Is it going to be that therefore we should be religious, or therefore the religious claims in religion are true? I mean, are you making that connection, or are you saying people identify through storytelling, storytelling reveals their values, and whatever is most valuable to them, we're going to call that holy? Is it?
First of all, we need to define what is true. So that's thing one. And second of all, I would argue that like where Core talks about, a hermeneutic relation of the symbol to the self is in the human condition. I don't think you can ever escape narratives or meta narratives. I think the postmodern claim that there is no meta narrative is essentially wrong because
Jackie, you're jumping around. Go back to the question. Go back to the question we asked.
Are you supporting religion as an institution, or are you supporting the claims that religions make about God?
I mean, what distinction are you making? That's sort of a distinction without a difference.
Well, there's a difference between a belief or a collection of beliefs and then reality. I mean, people can believe certain things. People can frame their identity in certain ways. People can go about their day keeping certain things in mind that we might call that religion, practices, rituals, rites, activities like gathering together, things like that. Some people argue that can be an important part of the human existence, the human procedure. But what I'm asking, but the idea of the actual God claims being true, in other words, is God really a thing? Those are two separate questions, and I'm just curious as to which question you're addressing.
I'm asking you how you define true.
You're asking me what?
The Newtonian definition of truth, or how do you define true?
Things that I tend to go with the correspondence theory of truth, and that is that things that correspond with reality are true. If a statement about reality matches the actual facts of reality, then I would consider that statement to be true. So true or false would be a classification on statements about reality, and if those statements match, then they're considered true.
And I would argue the claims of the Abrahamic religions, the Judeo-Christian tradition is true in the sense that there is order in the universe, there is meaning people aspire to, there's a call to adventure.
That's not, no, that's not what we're asking. That's not what we're asking. Because if you're using that to, like, of course, anything that you read, like any story that you find, there's going to be some grain of truth in it. That's not what we're asking you. We, under what you're saying, we could decide that literally any book in this reality is true. And I don't think many of us are going to sit here and argue that Harry Potter's a true story and that actually happened. Would you, under the definitions that you've given us, would you say that Harry Potter is true?
Well, assuming we're using the correspondence theory of truth, no, I don't agree. I don't agree. Harry Potter is true. I think, that's,
okay. So there are some stories. So there are some stories that are not true in the sense that they do not correspond with reality. Do we agree on that?
Yeah, under the correspondence theory of truth. Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. So now we have some stories that are true and some stories that aren't true under that definition. If you were suggesting that the Judeo-Christian scriptures are true in that corresponds with reality, how would you say that those books fall in the true category and not in the fictional category?
Are you saying that they are true?
Because what?
Are you saying that the Christian sacred documents reflect a true depiction of reality?
I mean, I'm not personally a Christian, but I think Christianity is better for society as a whole.
That's not what we're
That's
asking.
interesting.
Yeah.
That's an interesting point where it's not the question. So
Right.
do you think that it is true by the definition we are holding as truth or not?
Yeah, I mean, I believe there's one God, and I believe God revealed the Bible to the Jewish people.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
And do you think
So-
this argument that you're making addresses that question? Do you think that this approach supports your conclusion that there is one God?
Well, yeah, I mean, God as represented in religions is what calls you on your malfeasance. So, practically speaking, if that's present in people's consciousness, then certainly if we're dealing with the mind-body problem, it explains human nature. And what else?
I'm confused about how this. I'm confused about how these points link together. If your original premise, or your original claim was that, like, the religion is necessary because it's related to storytelling, and we all of our identity is based on the concept of storytelling. With that particular claim, you can get to so many different religions with that. How do we break this all down into there being one true religion or one true God? How do you separate that?
Well, the religion that has, well, it depends which religion storytelling is most in accordance with the human nature. And the West, broadly speaking, is built on a Judeo-Christian foundation. So Judaism and Christianity, both of those two religions are the basic foundations of the West in terms of things like respect for individual rights, belief in...
So hold on, though. So now you're separating out that the people from the West, and you specifically mentioned that. Do you think that human nature is different in the West versus the East? Like, are these completely different, like, natures of human? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Then by what you're saying here, we could, like, we're leaving room for these other deities. Like, we're leaving room for the whole Hindu pantheon. We're leaving room for a lot of Eastern religion because the way they carry out their societies are different. Like, if you're saying that, like,
they're not free society.
Western society most matches Christianity, like, okay, but a lot of Eastern nations don't. And they have different religious systems. So how would you exclude those?
Because those societies aren't based on moral principles of things like respect for the individual, belief in the divinity of the individual.
I disagree with that. I think most people would disagree. And I in fact think we got Richard backstage right now, who knows a lot about Eastern religion, and I'm sure he would extremely disagree with that. And we're pulling him up here now.
There we go. Speak of the devil.
Hello. I was doing something completely different then. So
Richard, what do you think about the claim that Eastern religion doesn't have concepts of, like, human rights or doesn't weigh importance on human rights?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the central concept of Buddhism is to escape suffering. And it does that by getting together a community which has, there is no morally good or bad as such in Buddhism. The moral concept is about doing the right things that will lead you towards enlightenment. So and that involves a community. One of the most important thing in Buddhism is a thing called Sangha, which looks after the rights of the whole community within that particular framework of trying to reach enlightenment.
I mean, maybe for some interpretations within Buddhism, but certainly, for example, Hinduism has a caste system. That's not exactly
Some schools of Hinduism have a caste system. Hinduism is a very, 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 very broad thing indeed. And, some of it is theistic. Some of it is completely atheistic. You cannot paint with a broad brush like that, Jackie. And Jackie, I don't know if you saw the end of last week's show. I had some things to say about you, which you probably wouldn't have agreed with. You've been slightly better this week in that you haven't had testicles, pouring out your mouth at such a rate, but you do still talk a load of fucking bollocks. You've said specifically that you are not a Christian, and then you keep talking about how this Christian thing is. We're interested in what you believe and why. What you believe. If you do not believe in the Christian scriptures, if you do not believe in the, whether it's an Orthodox Trinitarian idea of God or some kind of, an Eastern Orthodoxy or whatever, any of these different kind of Christian principles, why are you talking about Christian principles? Because we want to know what you believe. You have this habit, Jackie, of running all over the place. In fact, I was going to say this at the end of the show. What I actually wrote down, and this is word for word, when I was going to give my appraisal of your call of gishy, 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 gallop, therefore God. And that is literally what you do. You spew out so much stuff that isn't coherent. It's not even internally coherent. And then at the end of it, you say, therefore God. That's not what we want on this show. We're not interested in that in this show. We're interested in why you believe God exists. So we don't need, if you're not a Christian, that's fine. We don't need to talk about Christianity. If you know very little about Eastern religions, which, my appraisal of what you've just said, you don't know that much about them, don't fucking mention them. Mention what you believe. Talk to these two wonderful gentlemen here. Talk about what you believe and the reasons why you believe it. You do not have to invoke things that you do not believe. I'm out of here. I'm leaving it to these two guys. Behave yourself or I'll drop you.
Or send Richard back to the basement. No, but it's a good point though. But yeah. Jackie, what do you believe? Can we address specifically your position?
I'm a Ben Noah. Ben Noah.
Okay, say that again. What?
Ben Noah.
Ben Noah. I'm not familiar with that. Can you explain what that is?
So basically, Gentiles who believe in Orthodox Judaism.
Okay, so you're not a Christian, but you think the Christian religion has it correct? Is that right?
I think it sounds like Orthodox Judaism is the position.
Okay.
So how did you end up on this position? I'm curious now.
Well, because most Orthodox rabbis say that Christianity for Gentiles is kosher. So I figure if Gentiles are not going to become Noahides, they might as well become Christians.
I'm curious again. How did you end up that this was the thing that you were going to land on, other than the fact that you could? Like, is there something about the belief system that you are convinced by? And if so, we want to know what convinced you.
Well, like I said, I believe the West is broadly found on Judeo-Christian principles. So I believe that what pragmatically works for reality represents the truth as it actually is. What else are you going to base a society on if not truth? And if the Western society is so prosperous and it has Judeo-Christian foundations, then clearly there must be some truth value there. And
not necessarily. No, because the West wasn't based on Judeo-Christian values necessarily. At least if we're calling what we're calling the West very broadly are very different cultural groups that are all on a certain side of the world. And I think it's, number one, a bit disingenuous to lump all of them in together and say that they have similar religious foundations, and that those are, what we're carrying forward, especially with the fact that the United States, if we're taking the West and really meaning North America, which is like, you're probably talking about North America and Western Europe, they weren't all founded on Christian principles. In fact, like a lot of the things that were carried forward into the United States, like Constitution, are based on like human rights and human decency from a more secular perspective. And a lot of people will say that these are Christian principles, and things overlap because I think in general, humans want to have rights. And I think too often we credit Christianity with offering these rights, but actually I think the desire for autonomy, the desire for human rights, the desire for caring for each other and having a functional society goes beyond religion. I think that those are things that humans want to have as a social species, and we came up with religion to accommodate the things that we wanted to value. So I think it's flipped. I don't think that it's Christianity that gave us those values. I think we had those values and assigned them to Christianity or assigned them to whatever religion because we wanted the religion to get popular and so that we could use those things to drive additional agenda. So I would flip it if I were you.
It's almost like we were using storytelling to talk about things that were important to us.
Well, science in the West actually came from monasteries. Did you know that? The whole science.
A lot of science, and that is not an important point. That is going off track from what we're talking about. And again, I disagree because a lot of our foundation in math comes from Islam. So like the Arab world and the Islamic Golden Age produced a lot for our societies in the ways of science and math. And again, I think that those concepts didn't come about because of Islam. I don't think that like Islam is correct because we got those things from it. I think those are things that humans came up with in the context of a Muslim world at the time. Or in our cases, like the things that we got were in, I would say, despite being in a Christian world and not because of it. Like those are cultural contexts that existed, but quickly.
Okay, so basically, I believe implicitly religion believes there's order in the universe, which is why the West values science over non-science, and there's order instead of chaos.
Why do you need religion? Why do you need religion to be in that statement at all? What value is religion adding to that statement?
What I ordered yesterday.
No, so why couldn't I make a statement that humans value order, and so humans came up with a system to make their societies more ordered? Why? No, you have to justify inserting religion into that. You have to say religion is a necessary component of this statement, and I don't think you've done that. How are you going to prove that?
Well, so one of the things I've heard Jordan Peterson say is that religion is
Stop going back to Jordan Peterson. I don't care about what Jordan Peterson says. I care what Jackie thinks and what Jackie says.
Definitely.
What is your position?
Well, I would argue science is implicitly religious because the whole basis of the scientific enterprise is that truth will set you free and that our current knowledge base is limited, right? Science is the pursuit of
That's not religious. That's not religious. Jackie, that's not religious. The idea that we want truth is not religious, is not inherently religious. And the idea that we don't know everything is not inherently religious. You are assigning religion to things that don't necessarily need to go together because you want to believe in religion. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like you want this to be true. And so you're going to make any connection you can, like connecting the dots. Like if you look at a connect the dots page, you can connect the dots any way you want. It doesn't mean that you're going to like come up with the picture that was meant in the like the instructions or whatever. Like if you don't follow the dots the way that they were written, like that's fine, you can do it. But it doesn't mean that it's coherent.
You would disagree the idea that there's a transcendental order is the statement within religious doctrine?
I absolutely disagree.
Why add the word transcendental in there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, eternally true.
I disagree. I disagree that you're adding words to make it sound more significant. I don't think truth needs to be eternally true because the universe is very dynamic in the way that we see it. It's possible that things could be true today and not true tomorrow. Like that's we see this so commonly. Like if someone dies, like they were alive one day and that was true. That statement was true, that person was alive the one day. And if they died the next day, that statement, this person is alive, is no longer true. The true statement now is that this person is dead. So truth changes. Truth is not necessarily eternal. So I reject that. There's context.
Not
truth is context.
Individual facts are eternal. I'm just saying truth with a capital T is like.
I don't see a
What is that?
distinction between those.
Reverence.
What
I
is
reject
truth with
the
a capital
distinction.
T? Could you define that for me, please? Truth with a capital T is what?
The idea that what's factual will set us free and that it deserves reverence, or that we should have reverence for the scientific enterprise because by expanding our knowledge base, we will, conquer, bring order out of chaos, right? Wrestle with the tohu vavohu.
You're talking absolute word salad, and
That's a lot.
yeah, and it's you keep invoking science. I don't know if you understand what science is. What do you mean by science?
Science is a methodology of empirical inquiry which attempts to get to the world as it objectively appears to us.
Okay, so you have a decent definition there, but you're not. It doesn't seem like you're applying that super well. Do you think we could use that method without invoking religion?
Not without some implicit religious cosmology, because again, I think
Why?
the idea that
Why are these so
chaos.
related? Why, if I'm going to study, if I'm going to throw a tennis ball across the room and study the amount of force of impact it has on the wall across from me, and then also try to figure out at what speed I would need to throw this ball for it to hit the other side of the room, I don't understand why I need religion at all in that experiment.
Because why else would you be interested in capital T truth?
Okay, that question is not an answer.
Yeah, I was not. I reject that there's a difference between capital T truth and whatever else. Like, I would say truth is truth, and there isn't a reason to separate these out. I think it sounds like you want to separate them out because it sounds fancier and allows you to smuggle in these ideas. I don't accept that difference. So if I don't accept that difference, how would you convince me that religion needs this much attention? Like you keep asserting these things, and I want you to get to a point where you understand you're sitting in front of, like, hypothetically sitting in front of two atheists here who do not accept your claims. And instead of just redefining things in a way that people really don't agree with, how about you try to convince us that what you're saying is actually legitimate? Like, try to appeal to our understanding on that.
I'm just saying the reason implicitly that you care about truth is because you have an implicitly religious understanding of the universe as a whole, and your subconscious and your psyche. Right?
This sounds like this is suppositional shit. This is because you're saying that I have an implicit interest because I have an implicit interest. That's meaningless to me. I reject that.
I would still love if we
not circular.
How about this? Can you explain why should an atheist care about the truth?
No, we're not.
Richard, your mic's hot.
Richard, do you want to come? I feel like Richard wants to come back up. Richard's itching to come back up.
Yeah, I am. Don't. Why are you asking us questions instead of answering them? It's
right.
really, really simple. You're having a conversation. Are you incapable, Jackie, of having a conversation? That's my one main question to you.
Perfectly capable.
Right. Stop. If you are capable of having a conversation, you should be aware of how conversations work. You are asked questions, you respond with an answer. You don't respond with an entirely unrelated question, okay? So my hosts are trying really, really hard to have these conversations with you. I'm, as you can probably hear, fuming back here, getting frustrated, probably mirroring a lot of what what this audience is thinking when they're listening to you. It's really, really frustrating. It's really frustrating. Please just try and answer the questions. I'll be quite honest with you. I'd never heard of you before last week. And there were so many comments on last week's show saying, this guy is banned from all other shows. I am willing to give you airtime, Jackie, if you are willing to have honest conversations. I don't want to hear Jordan Peterson's name again. Just don't mention Jordan fucking Peterson. It's irrelevant. I want to know your opinion, your answers to my host questions, specifically in relation to your religious beliefs. That's it. We don't have to go to we don't need to know what Jordan Peterson thinks about anything. If you want to hear Jordan Peterson mentioned on the show, get him to fucking call the show. I don't want to know your opinion on what he thinks. Okay, so I'm jumping out again. I'm going to turn my microphone off this time so you can't hear me cursing at you. And I'm going to let you continue talking with the hosts.
Yeah, I'll give you one more chance to give us a good reason to keep having this conversation. And if we can't engage, then we will move on. What you got?
Well, what I'm trying to argue for using the evidence throughout history is that the reason that religion is necessary as a prerequisite for all scientific knowledge is that the reason to value any given act of perception over other acts of perception, or why any one cognitive form of focus is more important than another form of cognitive focus, is because you have a hierarchy of values, and at the top of the hierarchy
and
of values...
I just told you, Jackie, I just told you why I rejected all of that. We already told you why we reject all of that. And instead of going back through that argument all over again, we're just going to hang up on this call. So I hope you have a good rest of your day and can kind of think through everything. But just bringing up all the points that we had just said we don't accept, it does not buy any points. And for anyone who wants to take like a more presuppositional position, go ahead and call in, because we're ready to talk about it. Just like, at least don't
have a back and forth here. At least have an engaged conversation.
But like, try to not keep things so circular. Like, it's so hard to have a discussion when the discussion goes back into the circle of nonsense. We do have open lines. People are welcome to call in.
I would say that I think Jackie's call was interesting to listen to. I don't think it was all that productive. I don't think he addressed any of his initial claims. And I think it just, every time we asked him to clarify, it just adding additional branches to the tree does not explain how that first branch got there. It does not justify anything. And it can be very frustrating for us. Jackie, I know you're not on right now, but anybody else who wants to call in and talk to us, we enjoy having these conversations. That's why we're on the show. That's why we put our phone number out there and ask people to call in. But we want to have a back and forth. We want to understand what you want to say to us, for one thing. And it sounds like that, rather than trying to explain the things that we're asking about, you just wanted to continue on with your narrative. And sure, narratives are fine. They have value. They're worth exploring. They're worth presenting. They're worth listening to. But conversations, they are not. And so if there are things that we think that we disagree with, things that we don't understand, things that we would like clarification on, we want to be able to stop and ask those questions and then get answers to them, rather than just having the story continue. And So we want to understand. That should be a goal that we all have together, is when you call in, you want to present some ideas. We want to clarify that. We don't want to, it's not about who says the last word, because that's going to be us, because we have the hang up button. And so don't make it about that. Make it about a mutual understanding. And I think that you'll find that we will respond better. We will engage more interesting ways for you if you are willing to engage with us. It's a give and take. We're willing to give as long as you are as well. And so please, if you're considering calling in, take that into consideration. We want to have the conversation. We want it to be a two-way conversation. When we come up with questions and concerns, we would like those to be addressed before moving on with where you want the conversation to go. We have to build that path of the conversation together. And that's something that we all need to do together. And sorry for the rant, but it's just, it's just very frustrating. So many people call into these shows and we just butt heads, and we don't want to do that. We don't want to be butting heads. We want to be talking about how we could be butting heads, or we want to come up with solutions why we shouldn't butt heads, or, maybe we should butt heads. And so what kind of solution can we come up with that? And so please take that into consideration when calling us. And I apologized for the rant, and then I just kept on ranting, but I'll stop here. Well,
along with that, I don't mind if people want to call in with a presuppositional position, but you have to understand that you have a lot of heavy lifting that you have to do to set up that kind of argument, because you have to acknowledge that we don't accept that presupposition. So you have to convince us why we should start at the place you're wanting to start. And that's a lot. I haven't yet seen somebody attempt to bring us to that place. Like, if you want us to be in agreement about where we're starting from in a discussion, you have to work to get us there. And I'd honestly love to see a caller take that approach with us. And I'd love to have that discussion. So please, if you're out there, call in. We're ready to engage here. We do have a super chat that I wanted to read from David Haxor, who's been a member for 2 months, which is incredible, gives $2 Canadian saying #Harry Potter truthers. So we got a trend going here now, at least for acknowledging that Harry Potter isn't at least not a lowercase t truth, but definitely not a capital T truth.
Right. Yeah. Let's not even go there. Let's not even.
Thank you for your super chat.
Yes. Thank you, David.
We really appreciate it.
Yep.
And that's a great segue for some other incredible people that we want to thank in this show. And that would be, of course, our top 5 patrons of the week, which, of course, with our number 6 of the honorable mention. So if anybody wants to be on this list for the top 5 patrons, or technically top 6, it does change every week. And you can go to tiny.cc/PatreonTH to get on that list, have your name possibly read on the air if you're in this top group of people. And I will let Scott do the honors about reading.
I'd be happy to. First of all, thanks to all of the patrons. And I was thinking about this concept of this Patreon a little bit ago, and these people are true patrons. They're donating to help keep the show alive for all of our benefit. And so if you like what we're doing on the show, make sure that you thank a patron, thank a YouTube channel member, brick buyers, super chatters, merch buyers. All of these people are helping to support this organization financially if they can, and very often in other ways as well, for the benefit of all of us. Or we're assuming it's going to be beneficial. I'm in that camp as well. And I think it's definitely beneficial. But back to our top 5 patrons here. In order, number 1 is Oops, All Singularity. Number 2 is Dingleberry Jackson. Number 3, Kalevi Helvetti. Number 4, Left in the Leaves. Number 5, Neil, the 604 Atheist. Hi, Neil. And honorable mention, number 6, to Bethany P. So thank you to all of our patrons again. And if you like the shows, thank a patron, and maybe even consider becoming one yourself.
Definitely. And definitely give an extra shout out to Neil, the 604 Atheist. He's a great person. Love everything that he does for our community. He's got
a nice little show too, where he interviews atheists, and sometimes they have a little raunchy little after show. And so it's good stuff, good viewing to watch.
Yeah. And lots of people here supporting every week. Of course, a lot of these top 5 we read over and over again every week. And while that can change up sometimes, we have some very loyal patrons constantly working to support the show. So we greatly appreciate it. We do enjoy butchering your names every week. So thank you for letting us continue to do that. I think it might be fun to... It looks like we have a voicemail that's kind of interesting that we could get into. Are you ready? Are you ready to listen to a voicemail?
I'm phoning about the atheist experience. Now, the reason that you people feel linear and squishy is because of lack of education on your part. Einstein's twin paradox and John Archibald Wheeler and his student Richard Feynman, they propose that an electron is going forward in time and a positron is going backwards in time. So if you can't grasp that you're not linear, then that is very much a lack of education on behalf of all atheists. Nobody has ever found a brain engram in your fictional brain. So I'm suggesting that the atheist experience phones me because there is no reason, no logical reason for you guys to even think that you're not living the dream like the rest of us. Because pinching yourself and quoting your mommy telling you that you're a real boy just doesn't cut it. So I'll convince you that God is real because you are God. Because, dude, oh my God, I could go into it so much deep. Your toaster is conscious because it doesn't have a brain either, and a brain isn't necessary to store memories. Memory is consciousness is memories. Consciousness is simultaneous events that idiots deem memories. Idiots like atheists.
Boy, he told us.
Do you have any thoughts on that, especially related to things being linear? I don't know. I mean,
I'm not exactly sure what he meant. Maybe he meant we feel time in a linear fashion, because in general, I feel three-dimensional. I don't know about you, Dr. Ben. I feel three-dimensional. I feel definitely not linear. Maybe quadratic, maybe a cubic. I feel it kind of cubic. But as far as, time being linear, we experience it the way we experience it. I know physics has lots of interesting takes on the concept of time in general. What is time like? What is it? Is it part of space? Is it fixed? Is it continually changing? There's lots of different ways we can take this, but I'm not quite sure I grasped other than that atheists are idiots. I think that was the denouement of his call there, but I'm not really sure what he was trying to get at there. And I clearly he can work a phone. Maybe he could call during the show. I don't know if he's familiar with the show. We don't really make outgoing calls, but he's welcome. He's welcome to call into the show while it's actually running, and then I'm sure they would love to talk to him.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I don't have much to add to that. It was a lot of interesting word salad, but I agree. Love
but
that.
Spoken with passion and
yes,
and I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah,
awesome.
If we need to be more educated, call in and educate us. We're ready.
Definitely. I love being educated.
Yeah, we do have another super chat from Miranda Rensberger, who's been a member for 6 months. I know the thing already went up on the screen. She gave $5 saying that callers need to remember that half of communication is listening. Exactly.
Definitely.
Earlier.
Definitely. Totally agree with that. Thank you, Miranda.
And hopefully we'll have a good back and forth conversation because we have on the line, we have Benjamin, him from Alabama. Sounds like you want to talk about fallacies of supernaturalism. What is
so I was watching
today?
a video. I'm good. I was watching a video atheist experience. I actually forgot to call in until just now. But I was thinking about the very nature of supernaturalism. Something being supernatural means it can't be proven by natural means. So to say that because you can't prove it scientifically by natural means would be a fallacy in itself. Because it by definition,
Yeah, so that's the thing that makes it makes it interesting for a discussion. I remember the last time we talked, we had an actually really, really good discussion. The reason I gather why a lot of people will use like supernatural claims is because of that fact that they feel like they don't have to prove it with natural means. And my response to this.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, my response to this is, if you are claiming that something is supernatural that exists in our reality as we know it, or at least that intervenes or interferes with our reality as we know it, we should be able to find demonstration that those interactions are happening, right? So if God is intervening and curing illness, or providing food for the hungry, or if God is interacting in some way with our tangible reality, we should be able to naturally prove that interaction with reality, right?
Well, I would say, so a couple of things. I would go with a more simple example, like a ghost, for example. Now, I know there's people out there that use voice boxes and Ouija boards and all that kind of stuff, but on the other hand, I was going to say something that's supernatural in and of itself. I believe I'm throwing this wide. It's called a simple truth. Like if I say there's a tree in my backyard, which now there's not because I had it cut, but if I say there's a tree in my backyard, that's considered a simple truth because it doesn't require extraordinary evidence. You know, you can just take it on face value that there's a tree in my backyard. So a lot of people would say that the same applies to supernatural claims, even though I know that y'all say it requires extraordinary evidence because it's an extraordinary claim. But at the same time, on the other hand of that, you have some, parallel hunters and different people that try to make it their hobby to prove supernatural, whether it's ghosts or, demons or whatever. And there's some religions that go even deeper into that, like demonology, Satanism, Luciferianism, and some even back to, paganism and stuff. So there's a lot of history to that. But
so, Benjamin, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you this. If you think that supernatural claims can't be justified using natural means, do you think that there are other ways of justifying supernatural claims? And if not, do you think that we should just believe all supernatural claims because you can't prove they're wrong, right? Is that, where are you taking this? Do you have if you don't have a natural or a scientific proof of your supernatural claims, and it says here you're a theist, so I'm assuming that you believe in the existence of a God. If you can't justify the existence of that God using scientific evidence or logic or reasoning, how would you go about justifying that? Or do you just accept it without justifying?
So a couple of things on that. So I don't know if I've spoken to you yet or not, but I do believe in a God, but I don't worship the God because the God of the Bible is somewhat evil. I take a Gnostic approach. My sect of religion hasn't been around for hundreds of years. It's the kind of old Christianity type stuff from like I'd say 300-400 AD, like the Gnostic sects that said that God was evil and Lucifer was more the good guy. That's kind of.
Well, my question for you was about your God belief. Was not about any of the other stuff. It was just you said you believe a God exists. Okay, so if you take pause when asked to provide some sort of scientific evidence or some kind of natural based reasoning, worldly reasoning, and that kind of thing. If you can't justify it that way, so you've said you shouldn't have to justify it in a particular way, and that's fine. I don't speak for all atheists, but I just ask for justification. I've never asked somebody for scientific evidence. I've never asked anybody for any kind of particular type of evidence. I've just said, do you have any evidence? Do you have any good reasons? And then leave it at that. So what are the reasons? So you believe in a God, you just said. What are the reasons for doing that? Do you feel justified in that belief, or have you accepted that you can believe things without being justified?
Yeah, so I look at the history throughout time and all the locations of the earth and all the different polytheistic religions and all the other religions throughout time, and all of them have gods. So I looked at that, and then I looked at the religions close to me, like Christianity and Muslims and all the other different kind of religions, and all of them believe in a single God, a monotheistic God. And then I look at the Bible, and I take the Bible with a grain of salt because it's been changed and rewritten and different translations throughout time. But I looked at that and I use all of that as my evidence.
So wait, hold on. You said everybody else believes it. Is that your evidence?
No, not everybody believes in God. Obviously, I know y'all don't.
I was being a little hyperbolic there, but you're saying that a bunch of people believe in this God, and so you think that. Have you ever heard of the fallacy of the argument from popularity?
Yeah, but I'm not doing that.
That's exactly what you're doing. You're saying all these people throughout history have believed, and so therefore I believe.
Yes, but it's not the same God. All the people that I look at believe in different gods: Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Buddha.
You said your reason for believing in your God was the fact that all the people of the world, or at least a massive majority of the people of the world, believe in some sort of a God. That's what you said. You're the one who brought it up. That's what I'm asking about.
God,
so do you think that because
God,
they
so
believe in a God, it
that?
justifies you believing in a God?
What I said was that all the people in the world believe in some kind of a God. They don't believe all in the Christian God, but they have a belief in some kind of a God. So it's not the argument from popularity. It would be if they all believe in the same God. If everybody believed in the same Christian God, that would be the argument from popularity.
If that's the case, then their belief does not support your belief, and you shouldn't be presenting that as evidence. If you're not drawing your belief, if you're not drawing your conclusion from the fact that many people believe it, I mean, the specifics might be different, but we're talking about people believing in a God. You said that was supporting your belief, the fact that they all might have different gods, but they all believe in some sort of a God. Therefore, I'm going to believe in a God. That is literally the argument from popularity.
Well,
they believe in some kind of a God, but I base it off of history because throughout the decades, there's been multiple cultures throughout the hundreds of years that believe in gods and angels and visitors from other dimensions and so on. So I believe in some kind of a God. Now, why do I worship that God is something completely different, because in the Old Testament,
I have a question,
the Bible is pretty much evil. What?
I have a question for you, though, Benjamin. Why did you decide to start your investigation from a position of religion instead of backing up and not choosing a religion before kind of jumping into something? Like it sounds like you felt a need to pick one of the religions and just compare all of them and then pick the one that was right. How did you decide that you needed any of them at all?
Well, because I wouldn't say faiths, but I would say that some religions, not all of them, but some of them are based on the well-being of a better life. For example, the Chinese.
But why can't you do that? But why can't you do that without a religion? Like, I'm pretty sure I value like well-being for humanity, and I value
values, but all of that is you can base your life off of moral values, but at the end of the day, all of that is subjective. I have different morals.
Yeah, but it was religion. So why did you need a religion to tell you that? Like, why can't you just have those beliefs for yourself?
Well, I do. I have my own beliefs. I mean,
but why does religion have to be connected to it? Like, I don't understand why. And if you don't worship the God that you're talking about, like, why do you need to put yourself in that religious box at all? Why can't you just like suspend?
Well, so I put myself in a box. I'll tell you this. I go to church on Sunday. I went to church earlier, not the church I usually go to, but something that somebody's trying to start. And I do that not because I believe in the God, or actually I believe in a God, but I don't worship him. But I do that to help others. I do that to better myself and to better my community and to better the people that go to the church.
But why can't you do, hold on, Benjamin. Do you have to be involved in a religion to do good things for people?
Well, are you involved in a religion if you go to a church, or can you just go to the church and not believe?
You didn't answer his question.
It's still, and I would say yes, like you are participating in an organized religion. Whether or not you are believing in it, you are participating in that religion. If I work for an organization like Doctors Without Borders, am I doing something good even though it's not religiously affiliated?
Well, you're helping your community, so you would be doing something good.
Isn't that what you were trying to do with your church?
Yeah, but I'm not directly involved with the church. I just go there on Sundays.
Yeah, but it sounds like you were trying to say that you need, it sounds like, Benjamin, you were saying that you go to church so that you can better your community and help people. But I'm failing to see why you need a religious space to do that. Why do you need a church to do good things for people?
That was my point. You don't need religion just to go to a church. I mean,
so then what's keeping you? So then what's keeping you in the church? What's keeping you there?
Help me.
What's keeping you from saying, I don't need this?
Oh, that. Well, I've had personal experiences with God, and I've died a couple of times.
Okay.
Seen darkness all around me. And
let's talk about those things.
Now we're getting to the meat here.
Yeah, let's talk about those things that keep you going back to church. That's what we want to talk about. Tell us a little bit about these experiences.
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, I went to Birmingham. Seriously, I'm getting a call. 1 second.
Did he put us on hold?
If you need to take that, we can pop you back into the queue, and we can always talk to you next week. I know Benjamin calls in frequently.
Sorry about that. I'm back.
You're back. Okay. I wanted to give you a chance.
Sorry about that. So a couple of years ago, I died. I was medically dead for 15 minutes. Before that, so let me explain what all happened. So I was at a concert, and the music was so loud that I could feel my entire body vibrating. And I had grabbed on a chair in front of me because at the concert, I was on the floor level, like on the court or whatever it would be. And all the chairs was in rows, and there was chairs in front of me and chairs behind me and all that good stuff. And the chairs folded up. Whenever you stood up, the chair folded up by itself. And I had grabbed onto a chair in front of me and yelled, help. And the person in front of me turned on their flashlight on their cell phone. And I fell down. I collapsed on the floor. It was all dark because the lights was off. It was a concert, so they had like the strobe lights and stuff. And I went into a seizure of sorts. And I could feel myself dying. I could feel my body going numb, my hearing going out, my vision became black. All of a sudden, it was like, I was there. I couldn't feel nothing, couldn't hear nothing, couldn't see nothing. And at the time, I could actually feel some stuff. So I felt them put the pads on my chest. And I felt it stop me, and I could feel it pull me up a little bit off the ground.
So you weren't dead then?
I felt them put a needle. Huh?
So you weren't dead then? You felt it. You weren't dead. You had sensation. You had brain function.
Close. It was a near-death experience.
That's not what. So if you weren't dead. Right. And what it sounds like, did the things that happened, the things that you're relaying to me, is that your own perspective, or did you hear things of what people told you afterwards? Like, are you blending these together? Because I'm trying to put the pieces together of
No, so,
specifically what happened to
me
you in this time
losing
frame.
Yeah, so me losing my feeling and my sight and stuff is literally my own perceptive, because that's what
Okay,
happened.
yeah. So it sounds, because there's a lot of things that can happen here, and Benjamin, I don't know if you're aware, I'm a physician. So, and I've done a lot of codes on a lot of different people. I've helped people with seizures.
Well, let me tell you what they did next. So they stuck a needle under my arm and stuck it into my heart, and I could feel something burning under my arm, and they did like a hypodermic type needle and put it under like in my armpit a little bit and stuck it in my
so
heart.
they gave you an IV. So they gave you an IV and they put some epinephrine in it. Like, I don't know if you're aware or if any people are aware, but being the patient of a code does not mean that you physically died. Like, there are reasons that we run a code that do not involve you actually being clinically dead. With the algorithms, some of them are where it's like pulseless electrical activity where you really don't have any heart function. If you get to a point of asystole where your heart's not doing anything at all, that's often where you can't do any shocks, or you can't do meds. You just kind of do compressions and hope for the best. But a lot of like what leads into those algorithms is not the death itself. It's we're at a point where something critical is happening. We need to intervene very quickly. And it's the same things that you do if someone was dying, because it could be the process of actively dying, or it could just be an emergency that these are the same things that are going to fix it. So there's an algorithm we go into reflexively. And it sounds like, and I don't know the exact situation, but it sounds like there may have been some seizure activity. There may have been some concern that there is an arrhythmia happening, or that your heart wasn't able to compensate for whatever's going on. They were trying to prevent shock from happening. And so they maybe gave you some medications, like some antiarrhythmic agents or some like epinephrine, which is kind of the first thing we do in a code. And like after that, they're able to resuscitate you enough. Essentially, what they do in a code situation is like very rapid life support. So it's very hard to say, of course, because I wasn't there. I can't say whether or not you actually like were clinically dead or not. But from what you're telling me, it's very possible you never actually made it to that stage. And some of the sensory things that you're getting might have been actual sensory experiences that you had, and like probably you were. But as you lose oxygen, of course, your sensory function kind of gets distorted or can go away. It sounds like physiological things happen to you that are very easily explainable, that I wouldn't jump at all to a supernatural reason for that. I don't know if you have other details you want to mention, but that's my perspective, that this is actually a very routine thing that happened to you.
Stuff yet. So after that happened, after they put
Hold on a sec. Can you acknowledge what Dr. Ben just said to you?
Did you listen at all to what I said?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
so you understand that what happened to you is not in the supernatural realm. It's very easily explainable using mundane medical terminology.
Yeah.
Okay.
I get
So
that, but I haven't gotten to the supernatural part yet.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Go for it.
Yeah. Bring us there.
So after that happened, then I was standing above my body surrounded by darkness, and I could see myself on the floor. And then when I came back, after that, when I came back and I woke up on a gurney in the hospital, which actually, I don't know if you know about this or not, but if you can tell me about this, that'd be nice. So when I woke up, I couldn't see nothing. Everything was really bright. I was under a light, but it was like the light, like all of it was white. And it took a while for my eyes to focus and actually see the light, and I don't know what that's caused.
That's
by.
normal.
I was wondering that.
That's normal. Yeah.
But that's what happened. So that's why I believe in God, because I had somebody appear to me.
Do you believe in
like
God because
one
of
my family
hypoxia? You believe in God because of hypoxia. That is what I'm hearing from this. And your story is not is not very unique. A lot of people have similar sensations of them standing above their body. And that's similar to a dream state that a lot of people, like, you'll have people that are just dreaming that imagine themselves above their bodies. You'll have people with sleep paralysis that'll imagine certain things as well. The brain does very funny things when we're not very conscious. And especially if you deprive the brain of oxygen, some very funny things can happen as you're kind of losing your function, losing your ability to rationalize what's going on. I'm not convinced that this is supernatural.
I found out later that one of my veins connected from my heart to my lungs was messed up. And
yeah, again, that's super common.
Years later.
That's super common. That's so incredibly common. I wish you understood.
Yeah.
So Benjamin, you said that these things happen to you, and then that's why you believe in God. Let me ask you a question here, and I'd like you to try and be honest. I'm not accusing you of dishonesty, but it's going to be challenging here. If you learned that the experiences that you had a perfectly natural explanation, if you found that out, would you still believe in a God?
If all my experiences I had, including that one and all my other experiences that I've had, I found out had natural causes and was completely natural and not supernatural in any way, probably not.
Okay. So now you have a medical professional here who's told you that these things are very common, as a matter of fact, and do have a natural explanation. We don't necessarily expect you to take our word for it. In fact, you should be skeptical of the things that we say. I would suggest that you go in and look into those things, see if Dr. Ben is right. Ask a medical professional that you trust. Look, see if you can find information on that, because your interpretation of this experience that you had, is you've just said, is the crux, is key to your belief, and the way that you're living your life is going to be based around your belief. Now, I think that it's okay to believe in God. I think it's okay for you. It seems like you're very motivated as far as wanting to help people, wanting to make your society better, wanting to make your neighborhood better. And I think that's awesome. And I support that.
Well,
to some extent, I agree with that. But I want to say that if you have these foundational beliefs with an irrational basis, then that can lead to problems. And so now that you have an opportunity here to examine, to reflect, okay, we have the most difficulty being critical of ourselves, but it's the most important that we be critical of ourselves. We need to be critical of our own beliefs the most, because it's so easy to fool ourselves. So now you have an opportunity to either support your beliefs as they stand now, to support them better in such a way that maybe you could call back and give us some better information, or you have an opportunity to learn and to become a better person, to have your beliefs become more in line with reality than they did before. And so I think I envy you in that regard, and that you have some interesting exploration and research ahead of you here, because then that can affect your. I think it's important whether or not people believe in God. I mean, I don't hold it against people for doing that, but I think it's important. That's one of the reasons that I'm on this show. And so if I were you, it'd be important for me to examine those beliefs. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement with you that it's always important to be skeptical and to try to find the truth in things. I understand that.
Okay.
I'll say this. I don't think that I'll ever be where I don't believe in a God. I mean, I'm actually to the point where I don't even worship the God, because the God of the Bible is pretty much evil. But I think that's more because either the church, when the church got involved and changed everything around, they screwed up the Bible, or it was, because it was written by people. I don't believe it was God-inspired, because if it was God-inspired, there wouldn't be contradictions and all the other problems that are in the Bible. But at the same time, I get where y'all are coming from. So,
Well, Benjamin, I think we've had some really good discussions, especially like over the past couple of weeks and this one. And I want to encourage you to keep calling the show. I think if you have other experiences like the one you talked about here, like your near-death experience, even if you want to go over this one again in some more detail, or if you have other specific stories that you want to talk about, those are probably the best things to call in about because they're easy to engage with. It's a pretty straightforward topic that we can put a lot of depth into the discussion. So think about those experiences that you've had. We'd love to address some of those in weeks to come if you're up for it.
Well, I'll be honest, I kind of got off topic on this because my original reason for calling was I was watching a video with Matt in it. I don't even think Matt Dillahunt is still with y'all, but it had Matt in it, and I believe Tracy, and they was talking about supernatural stuff. And to me, if you're trying to prove supernatural stuff, anything supernatural with science, it can't be done because the very definition of supernatural is something that's not natural. So it can't be proved by natural means. So that
just means for supernatural claims, we have one fewer tool at our disposal to justify those claims. And so then I would recommend you find the route that does justify those beliefs, those supernatural beliefs.
Yeah, I think we've given you
an example of.
Yeah.
I can make an example of, say, a ghost, and I could use, voice boxes and Ouija boards and all that stuff, but I don't know if that would be sufficient evidence or not.
Yeah, Benjamin, I think there's a lot we can talk about that. I think even if you have a ghost experience or something, keep that in your pocket and bring that up on the next show, because I think we'd all of us here would love to walk you through kind of how we could approach a question like that. But I think we're needing to move on right now, but I appreciate your call once again, and I hope you call in soon. I hope you have a good rest of your day.
I enjoyed that call a lot. I think it was very interesting.
Yeah, I think those are good ones for the audience. I love talking through very specific scenarios like that. And I encourage anyone in the audience, if you have an experience like a ghost story or a near-death experience or what have you, it's fun to kind of examine those scenarios and think, what drew me to believe this is supernatural? Or like, what about this was miraculous in my opinion? Those are some interesting things to explore, and those are really good stories for calls. So bring in those, especially if you think that your alien experience or ghost experience makes you believe in a God. Absolutely call in. Those are calls that we really want to take from you all. And with that, we do have a call from Malylun. Sorry if I butchered your name. Pronouns are he, him, from Florida. It sounds like you are an indigenous monk, and you'd like to talk to us about that. I'm really curious about this. And please tell me how to pronounce your name so I get it right.
You're all good. It's Malylun. Like, it has a dot under the A typically, which is it's supposed to be like a higher pitch. Like, you have a exclamation mark after it. That's basically.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay.
Malylun.
Malylun.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, I love
So
that. That's a great name.
What my opinions were on monks? Oh, thank you.
Yeah. What's your call topic that you were wanting to talk about? I'm very curious.
So, well, I didn't tell the call screener, but basically, at least for my position and only me, I do think that for me being a monk and stuff, it's more of a special interest, I guess, if that's the best way for me to explain it, because I'm autistic. So it's more intense for me, if that makes sense. But I was just curious about people's opinions on monks usually, because from what I understand, I live in Florida, and the way that I dress, like, I go out and, you're bound to get stares and stuff like that. It's cool and everything. I get it. I just don't get, like, what are people's thoughts usually in the States when they see somebody that's dressed like me? If I go out and I'm dressed like in a Shinto fashion or something, like, what are people's opinions? What do they say typically? That's what I've just never understood. You get looks and stuff, but I don't know,
Yeah, I think a lot of people are unsure what to do with that situation. There's a lot of, I would think there's a lot of social stigma revolving around that, probably with some roots in xenophobia, unfortunately, in the United States especially. A lot of the U.S. is very not great about respecting culture, and it's something that we definitely need to work on, especially if the U.S. is going to consider themselves to be a place for a mix of different people. My opinions probably don't align with the rest of the common opinion. I would say, like, if a monk lifestyle where you're and all of that can vary among culture, so I don't want to paint everything with a broad brush, but something where you're wearing a particular style of dress that is very traditional and cultural, I think it's a beautiful thing. I think that people who want to kind of live in accordance to some more traditional principles, as long as they're being respectful of the people around them, not causing harm to society, like if that's a choice that they're taking on for themselves, like I don't see a problem with that. I don't see a problem with wearing the clothing, conducting. I don't even have a problem with like rituals as long as people aren't being harmed by it. I think where a lot of us, yeah, I think a lot of us have the issue like with religion when it demands other people to practice that religion or demand other people to live in a certain way, or if it engages in public harm or encouraging suffering of others. Like those are the things that we're not fans of. But as far as like cultural experiences, that is something personal to you, I don't see much of a problem with that. Scott.
Yeah, I would just add that I don't necessarily think that it's specifically being dressed like a monk would be specifically triggering. In many ways, it's just the fact that it's something that people around here might not be as used to. Right. And so when we look at a person, our brain immediately starts categorizing, or at least trying to categorize, tries to fit them into different categories so that we can know what to expect from that person, or what to expect from an interaction with that person, and so on. And when we come across something that's new to us, that's novel to us, in some of us, it stimulates thoughts of curiosity and of interest and of that kind of comparison. But in many people, it triggers a fear response. And I think in the United States, especially, we have a lot of people that fall into that latter category, that when they encounter the unknown, things that are not known to them, that are not even just not familiar to them, it triggers a negative response, a fear response. That's why we would see some xenophobic things. That's why we see things like racial slurs. That's why we see things like improper assumptions being made about people based off of how they look. And so, you know, if you find yourself getting strange looks or strange reactions, it's because people are encountering something that's novel to them, and they're doing their best to respond to that. They're trying to incorporate that into what they know about the world. And so if they react negatively, it's not necessarily a reflection on you. It's a reflection on them. It's a reflection on how they react to new novel stimulus. And if they reach out and want, you know, offer to shake your hand and want to ask you about, you know, why are you dressed this way? Is it symbolizing something? Do you represent some kind of religion, that kind of thing? Then it would be, you know, it's because they're a curious person, not necessarily because you are any more or less interesting of a person for them as you were for anyone else. And so, you know, that would be the main takeaway that I would have, is that, you know, people's responses to anybody really is more of a reflection on how they deal with things than it is on anything specifically about you, especially if you see different responses from different people. If you see like a universal response to you, then you might think that there's something to do with that. Maybe, oh, did I forget to shower? Do I have BO? Or you know, they keep holding their noses around me, you know, stuff like that.
That's happened, yeah.
But I would say, you know, don't. I don't know if you take that as a negative thing when people respond that way, but you know, like I said, it's more of a reflection on them. Although I would ask you, how do you respond to it? What do you think? What if somebody kind of looks at you funny, and because you're dressed maybe in a way that's unusual for the area? What do you think about it?
I mean, I don't know. I grew up Catholic and I deconverted like very young because I did not want to be in that. And then I started being this way at like 23. So for the longest time, I did dress like, I guess, the traditional way that we do here in the States, where you just wear like a shirt, pants, and stuff. But I also have a leg injury. So I tend to just wear wraps of clothing around my waist and stuff so I can actually bend down because I can't really bend my leg anymore. I have a pretty bad knee injury. So it's just been more convenient for me to both embrace it and just not really give a damn when I go out. I just be curious about like what people think though, because I do notice that people stare at you. It's just I'm not the person that really leans into caring about it. I notice it though. I will definitely be like, damn, like is it something that I'm wearing sometimes? But then at the same time, I'm like, I don't really care. I'm just out in the store. I'm getting some milk or something, so I don't really care, you know. But I do be curious sometimes, like just why, like what's the reasoning mainly, as if there even is one. But if there isn't one, then damn. You know?
Well, first saying really you be though. You. I mean, be the way that you are. You know, be yourself. But yeah, if people are responding negative, I wouldn't. It sounds like you don't take it too personally, and I think that's a healthy response.
Yeah. If you're being a kind and respectful person, and you're like you don't need to listen to those people like how they want to tell you how to dress and act and stuff like. None of their business. Like, and people can be very rude with the way they expect people to be. But
I mean, I've had
as someone who is
the person that I live
as
with,
who is queer and neurodivergent, they don't deserve any
That's
airtime.
kind of why I wanted to call.
Yeah, they don't deserve any airtime. So I hope we've been able to help a little bit, and thank you for having this conversation with us. I know it's something we don't get to hear a lot about. So
yeah, really thank you, Malylun.
That's why I wanted to call. It's all good though.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Take care. All right. We do have one super chat that I want to read from
sure do.
One of our favorites, Kelly. It's been a member for 2 years. If you don't know who Kelly is, you're not watching enough of these shows. He gives $5 saying, "You wouldn't believe what Scott told me about Ben in private."
That was a very clickbaity super chat there from Kelly the Rock Laughlin. I'll tell you that much.
That's what the title of the episode is now.
You wouldn't believe, kidding. Yeah.
Yeah, now I want to know. Now I want to know what y'all are saying about me in private. But either way, I guess y'all can find out in the after show.
That's true.
If y'all want to know what Scott said about me in private, you'll have to go to the ACD after show. So you can find that. If you're not already in the Discord, you can go to tiny.cc/ACD Discord. And do we have the love rings working this week? We'll find out if they are. There we go.
All right.
If you don't believe, like I said earlier, this is your community. We're here for you. You don't need a church to do good things for people. You don't need a church to be kind to each other. You don't need a church to make this world a better place. And this is your community. We hope that we're being a good community for you in the side chat and here on the shows. We appreciate you being here, calling us every week. And if you do believe, we don't hate you.
We're just not convinced.
Take care.
We want the truth, so watch Truth Wanted live Friday at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTW and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/calltw.